Color grading is cinematography in post. That's just what it is. DaVinci Resolve in 2015, and that's the product that Apple had back in 2008. Every Marvel movie, every Hollywood movie, this is like their de facto color grading monitor. Don't do the pretentious shit that, hey, I only do this or I only do that. The best is gonna come from your worst moments.
It's better to be loved or hated than be ignored.
Yeah.
Just go steal like the best work. It's always that. Like everybody does that. And I've made 7 figures, and I can tell you right now, I would leave it on the table. That is the only thing that is a little bit scary.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Bad Decision Podcast, where we give you guys a backstage pass to the minds of creative entrepreneurs and visionaries.
Now, if you guys have ever created a video or a photo, a short film, a documentary, or even a 3D render, you probably had to deal with color grading. You know, that final step before you hit render that makes or breaks a project, that can truly give life to your project. Well, you know, many skip this step altogether. Some will make an attempt but fail to get it right. But there's a certain few that can truly master this craft. And I'm proud to announce that our guest today belongs to the latter. He's a pro colorist who's worked with the likes of Adidas, Prime Video, Alfa Romeo, Canon, just to name a few. It is highly likely that you've ever searched for grading tutorials or videos on YouTube. You've probably seen his face because he makes a lot of videos and he makes the best ones. Everybody, please welcome Waqas Qazi. How are you doing, man?
How are you, bro?
Thank you for having me, guys. This is amazing. Great intro. And what's so funny is that this never happens. It's usually the other way around. I'm like doing podcasts with people and bringing them on. So I thank you guys. And this is also my first experience with Riverside, and I've been kind of scoping it. I'm like, I should be using this platform. when you guys sent me a link to like Riverside, I'm like, oh, this is a good learning opportunity. Like, I'm loving this. Let's do this.
See, there you go. Already seeing the benefits of this podcast. I appreciate it. We're doing it right, man. Well, Waqas,
there you go.
It's great to have you here. You know, we just had about a 20, 30 minutes discussion that was completely unexpected before we even started because of the work ethic that Waqas has over here, and we're definitely going to get into that because it's absolutely fascinating. But before we get serious, I got to ask you, you know, you got probably one of the most decked out studios I've seen on YouTube. How much does it cost to set up a studio like that? Because you've got all the sweet toys in there, and I feel like that's like a dream for a lot of people who are working in the industry to be able to have all those sexy tools.
It was a dream of mine, because I don't know if you ever saw the picture circling around, like where I'm sitting on like a 2008 like Apple laptop, you know, MacBook Pro, and like a $30 Walmart like desk. So like the beginning, we all have humble beginnings, you know, most of us. But so like coming from that, I've always been a gearhead. So it's always like, I'm gonna make an investment in myself, and then that's gonna force me to do my best. It's almost like I can either take $100 and spend it like on gambling, or I can take $100 and buy a cheap lens on eBay, and maybe I didn't need it, but now that I got it, it's gonna inspire me to go create magic. And then I go shoot a wedding, and then they pay me $1,200, and now I made 12 times what that lens cost. But if I wouldn't have done it, I wouldn't have the encouragement and the juice, like, you know, the motivation to go do that. So I kind of created that system very early on for myself, that bullshit justification, right? Like, it's just like, you can't afford it. You don't necessarily need that DSLR, but you're going to convince your wife. So when you're doing the pitch at the time, and you're like, you're like, listen, like, I know, like, I complain about money, blah, 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 but this thing, like, let me invest in it because things are going to be different after this, you know? Like, you go do it. And in my case, like, you know, God was just good to me. I was lucky enough that, you know, like good things would happen. Like, just luckily, I would like go buy a monitor, and then I'll get a grading job or something, and I'll be like, see like,
it just paid for itself.
Direct impact. The pitching part where Waqas was talking about reminds me of you, Faraz. You had a very good skill of pitching for PCs, monitors, gears, everything.
I think we're pretty much alike in that sense. We're very good at pitching for products that we want to buy.
I can just hear it in your like demeanor that you have that thing, and so it's just always been that. But yeah, man, if you want to itemize it, it's pretty fun. So here, like I have the Apple Pro XDR display, which is like was $6,000, and that's like my GUI monitor. Majority of like my tutorials, everything is recorded here because it's 6K. So even if I downsample it to 4K, I'm getting the highest quality. The monitor that recently I've been using is from ISO, and that thing is like a $2,500 monitor, CG series, which is their color grading series. And this is great because most of the people, when they're going to watch your content, they're going to watch it on a monitor that's not upwards of like 5,000 or more. So you kind of want to like go to the lowest common denominator and create really good work. And then if it looks good there, it's going to look good everywhere. Then we have the LG big 55-inch, which is basically a client monitor. And that's it's you call it a client monitor, but it's just the LG C10 55-inch TV right there. And then this big guy right here, HX310, that's a $35,000 monitor. That's basically the monitor that's used on every Marvel movie, every Hollywood movie. This is like their de facto color grading monitor. So having that, and then it was calibrated by the guy who calibrates Warner Brothers like monitors. So like this is basically just dialed in. And this thing is just so good. But like take the scopes and everything away from me. I'll color something here. And if it's good to my eyes, I'm like, just put it on fucking IMAX. It's gonna look great. You know? So like that is amazing to have that because, you know, this is, it goes back to that thing of like what I'm saying, like you have to make an investment in yourself and you have to be smart with like, keep upgrading your stuff because you don't want to have crutches, you know, like, especially if you're a professional at something. Because if I'm sitting here and if I'm working on something and the client goes like my Vizio commercials that I work on, these guys, we have to give them HDR deliverables and SDR deliverables. So I can just hit one button and I'm in HDR. And then HDR, same thing. It's like dialed into Dolby Vision like settings. So basically it's ready to go for Netflix. So let me just color something here. And if it looks money, throw it on Netflix and it's going to look as good as anything else that's on there. So having these tools become important because if you don't have that, you know, what is the opportunity cost? Because like, you know, the opportunity doesn't knock twice all the time, right? So like you might get it once, you miss that opportunity, you're gone. So, you know, now I'm getting into that shady pitch that I used to do to my wife. But like that's basically what it is. You know, that's how I would sell it to her. And then how is she going to say no?
I gotta
That's
say,
exactly what I did to get married.
I gotta say,
like I had to do the
very,
same pitch.
very convincing. I give it an A+.
I'm convinced.
I'm already convinced.
I'm convinced.
Farah, we're buying
We
those
are buying
monitors right now. Dude,
Yeah.
okay, honestly, you know, we have this discussion with 3D artists as well when we talk about their tools. And sometimes a lot of people don't even want to have that discussion because they want to say, you know what, tools don't really make that much of a difference. It truly starts with yourself and then the tool that you use. And I understand that you also have the same mentality. And I appreciate you explaining why you got these tools because me and Farah had the same discussion. The moment you realize that your passion, we talked about this right before we started the podcast, is an obsession. This is what you want to do for a living, right? You want to be the best at it. That's when you got to go all out. I don't want to spend the money on anything else but this craft. Like this is where it's going to go and I'm going to make sure I get the best hardware, the best software so that I can get the work done in the most efficient way possible with the highest level of quality. So I appreciate you sharing that. And Farad, are we going to
what we are telling our audience usually about when they ask about devices and hardware is if you are certain and if you're committed on what you're doing, you should go all in. If you know that what you're working on, this is your passion, this is something that is making money for you, why spending somewhere else? Why spend your money somewhere else? Exactly.
Like, I mean, it was so good to even knowing a little bit about you guys because look at this, right? Like the way you guys are handling this. I promise you right now, if you still had your clients and this was like your side gig, it wouldn't be as organized. It wouldn't be like this, right? So you would be kind of half-assing it and there's nothing wrong with it because some of us don't have the bandwidth to just go all in and do things. It takes a certain amount of passion. It takes a certain amount of moxie to just kind of go, I have belief in myself that I'm going to make it happen. And it takes a certain amount of naivete. You know, that's another thing, right? Like I was like the best things that happened to me is because I was so dumb, like making all those decisions. I wasn't scared because I was just so naive. I didn't even know the other side. I'm like, what other side? Like, this is how you do it. Whereas my other friends, like, I mean, I went to school in Chicago, Art Institute of Chicago, and that's where I got my degree. And all my friends, stayed in Chicago because I said, well, you graduate and you go to California because this is where opportunities are. And they were like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like, no, like you don't just leave your family, leave your home and you go there and it's a freaking behemoth. And I'm like, have you done it? Like, have you moved to California? And they were like, no, but like, that's what we read on subreddit and everywhere. And then for me, I just packed up my stuff and we moved out here, right? So like I'm doing $200 jobs. I'm getting paid $200 a week digitizing tapes. I mean, how exciting is that, right? And that's all I'm doing. And just even in gas money, it's like 30, 40 bucks even back then, just driving. So because I was living by San Diego. So my drive was like 2.5 hours each way and through traffic and everything. And I'm doing that and I'm listening to Drake like I made it. I'm just like we're making moves, right? This is back in 2010, so it's like, how else? Where else are you gonna start?
If I may interrupt, is that how you actually started? Did it start with you digitizing tapes? Because we were curious. We had this discussion about how do you become a pro colorist? What's that path look like? Because we don't have any friends that are pro colorists, so that's why I'm curious. What was the starting point for you to get into all of this? If you don't mind backtracking a little bit, so we all understand.
No. I think for me, it happened very gradually. Like I went to school for like my major was cinematography, minor in editing. So when you're a cinematographer, it's sort of like an organic thing, right? Like color grading is cinematography in post. That's just what it is. I'm like relighting, right? Like if I'm sitting here and I'm looking at you two, I'll go easy on you, right? So I'll throw a window on you because you're wearing a white shirt. Yeah. He's wearing a darker shirt. So you're kind of popping out and you're taking attention away from him. Maybe that's just like your guys' dynamic.
Color graded live right now. Oh my God, that's a pro colorist right there. I like that.
You know? So like I'll go there and I'll throw a window on you and I'll just like bring just you're too loud. So I'll bring that down a little bit, right? And I'll just let him live like where he's living. So it's like, it's no different. And then if I'm a cinematographer, I would do the same exact thing. If I'm there, I'll grab my light meter and I'll light you because I learned it that way, right? Like the old school way. So I'll like spot meter you and I'll go, okay, I got to drop like 2 stops on him because that guy is too hot and we're exposing for him. So then when I bring you down, you guys both look even. So majority of my work would be like, do it right in like pre, not even in post. Like prep it right, go shoot it right. So I feel like that gave me a really good starting point. But then very early on, what happened 2006, 2007, 2008, when I was going to college, I'm dating myself here because everybody nowadays is like a millionaire at the age of 19. But like, when I'm going to college back in 2007, 2008, what started happening is that I'm like, okay, I'm understanding lighting and cinematography. We're shooting these things that look good. Why don't they look like what we see in Hollywood? What am I missing? I'm like, there's something that's missing. Like, what is that thing? So then I just started doing digging, and I love research. Like, I mean, that's like my number one thing. So I'm just like, in another life, I would have been a great journalist because like that's just something that I love so much. So I'm just like, okay, what is that thing? And then at the time there was a tool called Apple Color, which by the way, oh my God, Apple Color was as good as like, think of it as like DaVinci Resolve in 2015. And that's the product that Apple had back in 2008. Whoa. Like they had like a insane product, and Apple just has like a horrible reputation of like making their software horrible over time. Because think about Final Cut 7. Final Cut 7 was used by Columbia Pictures, by Sony Pictures worldwide. And then they went from Final Cut 7 to Final Cut 10, which was made for toddlers. And then that just made everybody go, what did you just do? Like, and then Sony Pictures go, I guess we're going to switch over to like, Avid or Premiere Pro. I think they went with Avid. But it's like, that's what happened. They did the same thing with like Apple Color. When Final Cut 10 came out, they ditched Apple Color and they said Final Cut 10 has the same color features that are as good. The biggest lie ever, Apple ever told you. So it's like, so I started dabbling with it. The software was so expensive, but that's the best thing about like going to school, that you get gear that you can get access to, right? So like, think about that. So like, I used to say a lot of horrible things about school, but I feel like now looking back, I mean, I still think that it's kind of stupid because my loans are with interest and everything over hundreds of thousands of dollars.
God.
So like, was Apple Color that expensive, over time? But it's like, at the time, it gave me access to like, we had Apple Color in school, and then we had all the computers. So I'm there all day, every day. I'm going there on the weekends. and I just get my card and they give me access to the lab and I'm like in there and I'm just like messing around. So I feel like color grading just kind of became like a very natural progression from like I'm shooting something, it doesn't look right because obviously it's Rec 709. When you're shooting something, and especially back in the day, log wasn't even an option. So you shoot something on your camera, it's just Rec 709, it's baked. And then you take it through that process where I would just like mess with like my lift gamma gain and I would just go, holy hell, like what's going on? So I started getting a taste for it, and then everybody was always blown away because I feel like it's just such a intimidating thing. Like color grading is sort of like that, right? Like, I mean, you look at this panel and you're like, holy shit, like what is this? How do you use it? But once you start using it, you're like, how else can I work? There is no other way but to do it this way. So I think it was just like a general, a very gradual progression into that. And then when we moved to California, it was very much like, I'm here, I'm going to apply for all sorts of jobs, but I'm also going to do anything and everything. I'm not too good for anything.
So you came
right?
there
So
without having a job, right? Sorry to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I got here without having my job. I'm on Craigslist. I'm applying to like 60 things a day, and I'm just like whatever hits. So like I'll pick up like weddings were the most lucrative things in the thing in the beginning. So I was getting like $500, $600, $200, $800 a day, weddings. And it wasn't a day because I would go shoot it and then I had to cut together like a 4-minute trailer for it, but it was worth it, right? Like I'm working and I'm just happy that my skills are not being like, just wasted, right? Like I'm putting it to test. And then the digitizing the tapes thing was the first ever job. I'm applying for everything. And then here comes like, like a small business that goes, hey, we have all these mini DV tapes. We want to digitize them and throw it on a hard drive. Here's a hard drive. Here are 20 tapes. We'll give you, $100. And I'm like, hey, can we do like 150? And they were like, sure, we'll pay you freaking 150. And I'm like, sold, like I'll go do it. And then I would go pick it up. It wasn't just like how it is now, where even like 15-minute away places, I have them ship me a drive. Yeah. Oh. I'm like, I'm not coming to pick up a drive, like ship me a drive. And they were like, no worries. And then the dude pops up, right? Like they'll send a carrier and like he brings a freaking drive. But back then, it was just like, man, you tell me the place and I'll show up there, even if it's in Dubai. Like I'll fly out there, I'll do a $150 job and then I'll fly back, whatever. So it's very much like that. Yep.
So you got the first side hustles that helped you with, I mean, it was aligned with your career, but it wasn't, I think, the one that you were looking for. What was the breakthrough when you realized, okay, this is something that I can capitalize on or I can put more focus on?
Because I kept going really hard, so it didn't take me that long. I got here in February of 2010, and July or August is when I got maybe like June or July is when I got my first freelance opportunity, which was just like literally a side business for, one woman who was just like trying to start off something and do some YouTube videos and sponsorships and deals and things like that. And similar story, like where she was running a successful business, but it had nothing to do with what she wanted to do. And she were more like a personality. So she's like, I want to interview people and I just want somebody who can just do it all. And I'm like, I'm your guy. I can freaking shoot. I can edit. I can call and set up these interviews. Like I can send them questions. Like we can prep and, so I'm like, I'm just your guy. You tell me what, like I'll do it all. I'll freaking pick you up. I'll drop you off. Like, I mean, whatever. Like we'll just do it all, And I did, and it was like literally, I think $15 an hour or 18. I think it was like $15 an hour, and it was mind blowing because in Chicago at the time I was making like $8 an hour. So when I moved, and then I land this freelance gig, and I'm like doing the math, and I can't do it because it's so much money. I'm like $15 an hour, like I don't even know. I'm like looking at freaking Porsches, like I'm like.
Honey, we are rich.
Yeah. I'm like telling my wife, like at the time, my girlfriend, I'm like, you want to go to Gucci or something? Like, what do you want to do?
Calm down, man. You just started, bro. You're just like, come on.
Yeah. I just had that much faith in myself. I'm like, we got this.
I love that.
That thing lasted for, it was great. And we left on a great note, but I learned so much from it, because that's what I tell everybody. I'm like people that are starting out, don't do the pretentious shit that, hey, I only do this or I only do that, because you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah.
I think, like, you dabbling with a bunch of different things, and what we talked about before the interview, like, just knowing like the back end process, the front end process, like how do you get your taxes done. And while we're having this conversation, at the same time, I can delve in and talk to you about color grading and color science. And at the same time, I can talk about old Russian glass and like different cameras. And, we can freaking go in many places and we can have really deep conversations. And thanks to, technology, thanks to the internet age. And it's like, if you don't have that, and if you're sort of like stagnant in one field, it's going to be a massive disadvantage, because even in Hollywood, they are not looking for like a master of one. They're like looking for master of all, right? Like, so the jack of all trade and master of everything, like that is the new thing that, we're stepping into that world, right? Like, I'm doing a video and I'm like, I need some images. I can't even find it on stock site. I go to Midjourney and I tell it exactly, I prompt it like what I'm looking for, and it generates those images, and then I download it and slap it in my video. So it's like, we're already to that level where I don't need to hire a photographer and go out there and shoot something, like in so many instances. I'm not saying it's replacing everything, but I'm just saying having those experiences and knowing all that, that didn't just happen because I was just a colorist from day one. So like, that's what happened, right? Like, I'm like, what I'm saying is like having that attitude, hey, I'm going to come pick you up. I'll freaking drop you up. I'll do everything. I'll learn everything. Not to mention that what it did for me is that I knew more about the California geography way more than my cousin who lived here for like 5 or 6 years. I knew everything in like 5 months, and I'm like, hey man, the good food spot is over here, and like, if you want to go shoot something, like there's a spot right there, we can see the sunset and blah blah blah. And I knew all of that in like 3-4 months, right? So like, my first big break was August, or I think it was like August of 2012. Like, I got my first break, like where I got a full-time job shooting. Was it 2012 or was it 2010? I'm getting confused with like the dates, but I basically got a full-time job with a racing company where I was gonna go shoot documentaries. So I will travel around the country. It's such a cool job. It's a dream job for like somebody who's coming up, and it's a predator position, right? Like, so I'm just like, I'm shooting, I'm editing, I'm doing all of that. But I got to see 35 states in the United States, more than even my wife, who's born and raised here. I got to see 35 states in 2 years, and the experience was invaluable. So like, yes, before the interview, I said like, that's what led me to go to the freelance route, because at the end, I just had it enough. Like, I'm working with people that I have better ideas, I can do better. And it's not just because I'm being like, everybody thinks they have better ideas. But it's like, there are times when he would give me the freedom and I would do something and it would blow up. And then it's almost like the hierarchy of like the workplace, where if they see that you're getting too much limelight and you're the subordinate, they can just come in and they kind of put you in your place. And I didn't like being put in my place. Like, I come from like a family, and my dad is a freaking lion, so it's just like, you go take what you want. And like, that's just the way it is. So for me, I'm not one of those sheep who just goes, well, now I have bills and now I have this, and hey man, just tell me whatever and I'm cool. Like, I'm like, that's not good enough. So then I'm just like the back and forth, and I'm like, no. But those 2 years are invaluable. So I don't like take that back. I feel like shooting fast cars, there's something about it, and especially shooting live events, there's even more like value to that, because you get one shot, like, your car is about to cross the finish line and you are on turn 11, you have to be on turn 1, and you have to make it however the fuck you get there. And you have to pick up your camera and your sticks and your, big setup, like lenses and everything, and you got to jet. You got to throw it on a golf cart, fucking haul ass and get to that spot, and then run through and fight through, like, photographers and everybody that's there, and then find the spot and get that shot. And if you don't get it, it's your ass, Wow. So it's like, those things like really slow everything down. So for me, I feel like creating content and working on projects, everything in my head is running at 240 frames a second. Like, it just goes very slow for me. I'm like, no, I'm following. Like, I can be really far ahead of you, and I got it. Like, I can see the picture, and that wasn't developed until then, doing that. And then you got to do it right. Like, you get this driver And it's just so exciting, man. I get pumped about it because it's like there were races. This one race called Sebring. It's a 12-hour race nonstop. Think about that, dude.
12-hour
Like,
race nonstop.
it's a 12-hour race nonstop with like hyper sports cars, and these cars are doing 110 miles an hour on like a sharp corner. And then the drivers, there's three drivers that switch. So each driver drives for like 4 hours, and when you see these guys come out of the car, you literally see like smoke coming out of their helmet when they take it off. I'm telling you, it's freaking crazy. And then you just get like literally 30 seconds with them, and as soon as they come out, you have your lighting set up and everything. You have a stool, and you have a couple of guys standing there with the boom mic, and you put them right there, and you get that emotion, and you ask the right 3-4 questions, and you're like, done, go. It's almost like we are doing our own pit stop.
Yeah,
you know,
literally.
but like,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
you know, it's like that. And then even like with the pit stop situation, I had done something that was monumental at the time in that sport, in that space. What I did is that I slapped GoPros on like all the pit crew. So like when the car comes in and you have 6 seconds to change the tire, gas it up, and then boom, the car is gone. There is no better angle than having the POV of these guys in the moment, going in, pulling the tire out, replacing the new one. And then when I cut it together, oh my God. It was like,
I can't imagine that.
it was, oh dude, it was everywhere. So it's like, it blew up like within the first few hours. Like we had millions of views. It went on like big blogs, Autoblog, and like all of those places. And it was like revolutionizing like that setup. So it was like so cool. So anyways, like, I mean, this is a long tangent, but it's like all those things I feel like give you the tools. And then I was very sure in like 2012 when I quit, so basically I worked, now I remember, 2010 to 2012, I worked for them. And then 2 years later, I'm just like, oh my God, working 60 to 70%, like traveling 60 to 70% of the time. I'm away from my family. It's just sort of like I'm living the Tyler Durden Fight Club life, right? Like, I mean, you close your eyes and you wake up and you're in a different city and you don't even know. You're just like, oh, I don't know. Like, maybe I've been to Boston. I don't know. And then you're walking in Boston and you're going, oh, yeah, I remember this place. We ate right here. You know? And it's just like, so that, like, that experience, I don't change it for anything. So it was like a very decisive decision afterwards that I'm like, I've built a few connections along the way. And I think I'll be okay if I go the freelance route. But it still wasn't easy. Living in California or in expensive states is never easy, and taking a chance on yourself, I'm talking about like pre-social media, because I mean, think about it, like at the time, 2012, Instagram is only a baby, 2 years old. Like, you know, and it's just like these platforms are not being used or taken as seriously
The creator
as it is
economy
today.
wasn't fully developed yet at the time, right?
1 trillion %.
What risk that you have taken in those years, and you made that switch from having a stable full-time job, and you had family that time, to go to the freelance route. If someone comes to you now and asks for your advice, what would you advise them being in this path? And if they are working in a full-time job, they want to go to freelance, would you tell them take it and go? Or
I want to be honest, and I want to tell the story the right way too. So like because I think it's very true. It's going to help a lot of people to say the right things and not like omit facts. So there is a time in that at the end of like my tenure with them that, you know, I got to a place like where I can't take it anymore. I'm frustrated. The HR won't listen, like, you know, the higher ups don't listen, like, you know, I'm having issues with my director, and I send my director an email where I kind of check him, you know, and I send him a very direct email, and then I CC his boss on top of it, and then I also send it to my supervisor, who was a homie. So I send it to him, and then he takes me for a walk, and he goes, you know that after you send out that email, they're gonna send you packing, right? Like, you're done. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he goes, okay, you're going to be given multiple options. They're either going to say like, hey, quit, or they're going to fire you, but they would want you to quit because then they don't have to pay you a severance or anything like that. And he's like, my suggestion is that you get fired, because then you'll have the 2, 3, 4 months period where they're going to pay you and you can find the next job. And that's exactly what happened. So I sent an email and I'm like, let it happen. And then like 2 hours later, they brought me in to their HR department, had the shittiest bullshit. Like, I don't even know why we have HR. We should just like literally have bots sitting here, because they just like regurgitate shit. And they just like read me like a sympathy things, right? Like whatever, this and that and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and they're just like, yeah, we really think you should quit, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no. I'm like, just if you guys want me to leave, just make me leave and I will leave, And then that's exactly what happened. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it was much more than just like deciding to quit my job willingly and go do something. I had to make a very difficult decision and put my family in that position that, hey, I want to, because at the end of the day, I feel like it's very important that we're true to ourselves. That's one thing that I tell my wife all the time, and we laugh because she says, you're just not saying it right. And I'm like, no, I know I'm saying it right. And that is like honesty. As creatives, we just have to work from here, and we just have to be so authentic and honest. For me to wake up at 2:30 in the morning today and put out that video, retention wise, it might not do shit. It might not mean anything. I could have just uploaded the video last night and said deuces, like I don't give a fuck, like I'm gonna go watch Netflix and something. It might have performed the same way, but it's for me. It's like my honesty, like to myself, that I got to do it right. And in that moment, and how I'm brought up, like my dad is like has made a lot of bad decisions in his life.
Hey.
Like where I come from, like we've learned that you got to have a clear conscience, and you just got to be authentic and real and believe in principles. You got to have principles, and everything that was happening at that job at the moment was against my principles. And I told my wife that I got to do this. And to which, she was 1,000,000,000% in support. And that's another thing that I had going, which is really massive, that you have somebody that, you say, hey, I'm going to jump. And she's saying, why are you, telling me go fucking jump? Yeah. So it's like, I have that partner. And then that really helped me where I'm just like, hey, I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to do, like I said, the sheep way, like quit or whatever. Yeah. So I went and did it. So it was a very tough decision. That's why I was telling you, like earlier when we were talking, that I'm like, there are decisions that I've made which are also very bad over time, and that happens because you're naive, and I think there is a blessing in that. Like if you become too calculated, and if you're just always like making sure that it checks the boxes on everything, it's not going to amount to anything. So you really have to just kind of sit back and go, this is going to make me sleep well at night. At the same time, we only have $700 in our bank account. That's exactly what the situation was. Like I have $700 in my account. I'm quitting this job. My rent at the time was $950. What the fuck is gonna happen? And I said, hey, what do you think? And she goes, fucking quit. Play like a video game or something. Just like calm down. Just chill out, and you'll figure it out. And that's exactly what I did. Like this happened. I left, and then things have started happening after 2 days. So my advice to anyone that's in a similar situation is that the best is going to come from your worst moments. When you just feel like everything is lost, I don't know what the fuck is going to happen. Maybe I should go back to do X, Y, and Z, what my parents told me. Like we go through that so much because our field is like, it's not a straight path, right? Like it's not like you go get a degree in like computers and then, you get this job and then you get here and you get here and you get here. That's not how it is. The reason why I don't work in Hollywood is because I make a lot more money than working in Hollywood. I have friends that work in Hollywood, and I listen to their rate, and I'm like, you're getting fucking robbed, So it's like, and plus you're a little cog in a fucking massive wheel. Like nobody has ever heard of you. So it's like, it's fine. Like if you want to be incognito, you want to go do that thing, go do it. But I want choices. I want to be, like I said, honest to like what I do, believe in what I do, and I hate. My biggest indicator that you're not supposed to be, at a specific job is like when you're getting tired, when you get to work and you have no motivation, when you drag your feet until like 1 p.m. till you start firing. If you're in that zone, that is the clearest indication that even if that's something within arts, right, and you're doing something in your own field, that's not a good environment for you. Because how I just told you guys, like I went to bed at 10 and I woke up at 2:30. I mean, the alarm barely went off and I was freaking up. I jumped up, I probably like just screwed up my back, but I was so freaking stoked. I'm like, I'm ready to go. Like another day, let's attack it. Like, how are we going to attack today? And it's like, I can't put a price on that. So I don't care if somebody hires me as a consultant and pays me $2 million. I personally feel, I've made 7 figures, and I can tell you right now, I would leave it on the table for things that I got going on right now, because one, I'm looking at the big picture, and anything that's like dense and like deep, it might not look like how big and huge it is, but it's sort of like an iceberg, you know? It's really fucking deep. It's like, you know, maybe the tip is just like, it's like, it's whatever, but you look at underneath and it just goes for like 30,000 feet. So I don't know if it answers the question that you asked.
100% did. First of all, thank you for your honesty. It's very hard to hear stories where people talk about every aspect of their journey, because it's not all about success. It's not all about, oh, I made that money, but it's all about which decision, which was hard that you had to make, and you took it, and they were challenging. So thank you for being honest and, you know, telling everything about us.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I mean, the same thing happens to us all the time. Whenever we had to make the decision to immigrate, we went through the similar process of, okay, so how much money do we have? How much money do we need to spend to make this next move? And how much are we going to risk? And at some point, of course, I assume you also deep down are extremely scared. And that's a normal thing, because, you know, if you're not, then something's wrong with you, because you need to be able to take care of yourself and your family. But at the end of the day, there's a feeling at the same time that gives you faith and hope in believing that you can do it, because there's no other way around. Like, this is the only thing I'm made to do, and I want to do it. And clearly you've had that same mindset. I want to continue the story. We know now where you basically started, where you had a lot of the experience, you know, moving around the country, taking a lot of the shots, learning how to work fast. Amazing relationship with content creation, clearly, based on your track record. Did you start working with big clients first and then decided to create content, or did you start making content and then the clients came in after that?
No, it's the other way around. It's a very traditional route, because as much as I am very ballsy with like the moves that I make, I'm also those moves are made because I'm good at negotiating. And I think that's just like, you know, that's a cultural thing, right? Like, I mean, it just like I sold my phone to somebody from Egypt yesterday, and my wife is the one who did the transaction, and she hates, like, you know, she's from here, so she hates like negotiation, and the concept doesn't exist in this country. So she's over there, and she's like, she calls me and she's like, this guy's asking for, you know, $25 off or something. I'm like, let me talk to him. And I get on the phone with him and I'm like, what's up, dude? And he's like, dude, Waqas? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, assalamu alaikum, brother. I'm like, wa alaikum assalam. Let's go, bro. Like, what's going on? And then he just goes like, you know, so we come up with like some bullshit deal, whatever. I'm like, dude, I can't give you $25. I'll give you $12 off, like, for whatever reason. I could have given him $25, but it's just, you got to negotiate. Yeah. So I do that. And then he gets off the phone, and then he tells my wife, like, they were laughing, and he's like, this is our cultural thing, you know, this is just what we do. Yeah. So I just feel like I had that ability, and, you know, compared to my peers that were, let's just say if they do a job for 400 a day, I was doing a job for 800, like 1,000 a day. So then that means that either I have to work half the time, and then I could be open to do my side hustle, or I can double it and make 240 grand a year working 110, 120 days. So it's like I was good with that math. And with that, it just kind of gave me the freedom, you know, to kind of just like go in and just make those ballsy moves. But one of the things that I do want to, again, touch on, and I will get to your answer too, but one of the things that I wanted to say is that when we're going through our journey, just like how you mentioned it too, like, we're going to go through our ups and then we go through downs, but don't ever think that once you go through, like, you know, you go down, you know, through a valley and you go back to a peak and like, now you got it, now you nailed it, and this is going to be it. Because what happens is that, like, my brother and I were just talking about it the other day. I'm like, holy hell, man, like, the last few years made us so humbled, right? And that could be like, just like the inflation that's happening around the world, like whatever is going on, right? And we were just talking about it. We were like, dude, it's like the world made us grounded. It's like it pulls you down and puts you back in your seat and just goes like, hey, calm down. Like, you know, you're not in the clouds, but it's okay. Keep going. So to answer your question, no, I come from, like, I've played the safe game, but at the same time, in a very calculated way, and I just knew my worth. Like, whatever I did from the early days, 2007, 2008, in school, I was a cinematographer for all the senior students when I was a sophomore or when I was like a freshman. So that's when I started to kind of see that I'm like, okay, there's something there. Like, all these like seniors are coming in and going, shoot our project. So when I took that and I came in, I'm just like, I can basically use that same exact skill and trajectory that I have and just keep going, you know, and just keep hitting and see like where it takes me. And that's just like one of the things that I feel like Can you mention your question
the
like one more
question
time?
was, did you start content creation first before getting the big clients that you work with, that you're very proud of,
Okay.
I assume? Or did you work with the big clients first and then decide to start creating content around that?
So it's starting 2012, like when I go freelance, that's when I start working with Toyota and I'm working with Ultima, like Nissan. And like, that's when I started attacking like big clients. And that would be just like you go in for a gig, you work for like a 4-day gig, like, right? So you do 2 ads for Toyota and you're done. Then they hire you to, grade 2 commercials for Nissan and you're done. So I started doing that and I just like got to learn the advertising side of it and fell in love with it. So it all started there. I mean, my Instagram and the YouTube didn't exist for like until like 3.5 years ago. The Instagram didn't exist till like around 3 years ago. I had an account, but I had like 200 followers, pictures of my cats and us and stuff like that, like me and my wife, that kind of thing. But I used to be a very private person. And I think what it was is that it was very much like a crazy imposter syndrome, like buried deep within, where it's just like I always made a lot more money than in my head, like I should have been paid, and it just like I just always thought that maybe I'm just good with like persuasion, and it's just like I can sell it. I can go in and I can paint a picture and I can sell it, like, so I always thought like, I don't know, like, am I that good? And what freaked me out about like when my little brother, who really pushed me to get into the social media game, is that he's like, you should share these skills and you should tell people about this because you got away. He's like, you explain things to people and it just changes everything. And just a little side story, like I taught my little brother how to use Final Cut 10. He wanted to make some chess videos. He was like one of the best players in the country at the time, playing chess. And he's like, I want to start a chess channel. So I taught him how to use Final Cut 10 in like hour and a half before my flight leaves from Chicago to California. And I just give him like the craziest crash course. 3 years later, this kid has like a programming channel that has over 1 million subscribers, and right now he's sitting at 1.5 million. So he told me, like, he just kept like at me, right? And he would just be like, he's like, dude, you took me from like somebody who never even heard of like didn't even know how to spell video to like make a 1.5 million freaking, subscribers channel. And that all started with like you just showing me this tool in a way that I was just like, oh my God, like I can edit like a freaking Hollywood editors. Like, what the hell? Like, it just, you broke some, you
unlocked it. Yeah, you unlocked it for him.
I unlocked it. And he's like, dude, you have that quality. You got to freaking share it with the world. And I'm just like, because I haven't really felt like on my face in terms of like my skills, I've always been like looked up to by all my peers. I'm like, I don't want to just open myself up to the world and then if these guys go, you're not good enough. Like if the world told me, didn't give me the affirmation that I basically grew up on, it's just going to shatter me. Like, it's going to destroy me. So that kind of held me back. So I come from a traditional background, but all the traditional background people that are working in agencies and doing those things, I would tell them right now that don't do that to yourself. Like, there is no better advertising platform than social media. And the thing is that it's absolutely free. So it's like, you shouldn't be just like, oh, I'm going to hide and like I'm just gonna be like working on this thing and I don't want to do my own content. Everybody should have something on the side, and that's just what happened for me. So like I'm working on professional gigs, but what it did help me with, I gotta say, coming in with like those big brands under my belt, my first ever video on color grading hit like 5,000 views in about like 3 or 4 or 5 days, which is monumental back in the day, especially for your first YouTube video. And then my brother was just like, he's like, dude, I'm so happy that I'm crying for you. And he's like, I'm so sad that I'm crying for you, because he's like, the bar is set so freaking high. He's like, it took me 100 videos to hit like, he's like, it took me 100 videos to hit like 5,000 views. And he's like, you get that. And that's like your standard. Like you got 5,000 views on your first video in like a couple of days. And what happened is that it was just like all this like $100 million campaigns that I'm working on for Dodge. I'm bringing that experience and just boom, dropping it on YouTube. And then my content has that quality and everything. And not to mention, in the color grading space, if somebody's a colorist, they're not editors, they're not storytellers, they're colorists. So then if they do tutorials, it's gonna be like a very boring looking background, and the editing is gonna fucking put you to sleep. Like instead of like listening to white noise at night, it's just gonna be like that. And then here comes this guy's content, and I have narrations, and I have B-roll, and then I have an intro sequence, and then we go to this and we go to that, and the music stops when the joke drops, and there's so many things that are happening. And then I'm like, holy shit. And then it's just such a way to express myself that I'm like, I'm kind of hooked on it. And then it just took off. I mean, my social media, I didn't struggle with social media until Reels became a thing.
Oh, really?
I was just hitting it so hard. My trajectory was so crazy. 30,000 followers in 30 days on Instagram. Like, we're just exploding all day, every day. I am struggling. I started struggling like last year when Reels hit, and I just couldn't tap into it. I couldn't figure it out, how to crack that code. And all of a sudden, like, we plateaued. And it's just like, okay, the growth for the month, we got like, 200 followers in like 1 month for a 460 or 50,000 follower account.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what is happening? Like, something is like really weird. I got to tap. So then you go through a denial, right?
Yeah.
So you go through like, fuck this, I don't need Instagram. I know how to make money outside of it. Like, I don't even need this. Instagram is for kids. Like, maybe I should turn around and show my ass. Like, I don't care. Like, you're just like thinking about all those things. And then you just calm down and you go, okay, let me see what I can do. And then you do it and you fail. And then you do it and you fail. And you do it and you fail. And you're giving your 150% and you fail. And that's what makes you grounded. And you go, holy fuck, dude. Like, it just like, I have the data, I have the audience, like, I have the knowledge, and it's just not hitting it. So I can't sit back and I can't sit back and hate on the 24-year-old that cracked the code and figured it out, because probably that's how people were hating on me before, because I fucking figured out the long form code,
Dude,
and I was killing it.
That's literally how it always works. It's always you uploading a video, and whoever's tried to upload on any social media platform, and when it doesn't work out, you're like, fuck this,
Algorithm,
yeah,
shadow ban, like all this crap.
It's just they're doing something that other people enjoy watching, and you're clearly not. And that has been the case for us. We've whenever we wanted to create anything in the very beginning, but it changes. If you really want to make it work, you'll figure it out. Now, I gotta say this, your content, for anybody listening or watching right now, please go check out, if you haven't already, Waqas' channel, because especially recently when we watch your reels, the edit quality, the production quality, the sound effects, like you mentioned, they're actually true. They're also well done, and you're not just depending on the value you're bringing as a colorist, but everything around your video is not just educational, but entertaining, and it's just clean. And you appreciate when a quality of a video has high production value. And I gotta say, we see that trend in all of your videos, especially on YouTube and Reels, where we follow you most. And it's crazy. And I want to know now, you talked about the content creation, you talked about the big jobs that you've taken on. What does a day for you look like now that you've worked for many years in the industry? Of course, content creation can be a money-making machine, but so can be when you work with clients. How do you balance these two together, and what does a day look like for you?
I like to work on, the way my brain works is that I got to focus on one thing at a time. I'm not a great multitasker at all. I can't jump back and forth. My wife makes fun of me, like I'm really like a grandpa in that. Like, I just gotta, but then when I will focus on one thing, the breakthroughs are gonna be crazy. Like, I'll go really nuts. So like the way I break up my days, they're like full days of tasks. Like, so today, tomorrow is YouTube, right? So like I'm working on the next YouTube video. So like the next 2 days, it's gonna be like I'm just hitting it hard. So like I'm cutting my YouTube content Wednesday, and then Thursday I'm grading a project for a client, right? So like I'm working on a video, for my client in India. So like Thursday is gonna be that. Friday, later in the day, we have family coming in, but Friday I'm finishing up like my new sales page, and then all the checkout page and everything. So it's going to be like more about the business. We're going to be locking that in. And then a few hours that I'm going to get, like I'm very close to sending out a couple of proposals for partnership deals. And those are been like on the back burner for the last week or two. So like I want to handle that. So that's going to be like Friday. and then family comes in and we have a Halloween party. So it's just gonna like the 3-4 days we're just like hanging out. Cousins are in town, like it's gonna be a good time. But then Monday we're back at it, right? So for me, my days are like big chunks, and then I'll slot in some time, like like I'll probably after this live, like I'll go and just for two hours just read, like maybe an hour, like just read a book, and just like I do breaks like this. I don't do like a junkie, like a social media, like I gotta have like 15 minutes of something. I don't do that. So my phone will always be in like a focus mode. So like right now it's in a work mode. So it's like my wife and my parents can reach me, my brothers can reach me, but that's about it. And then Slack and like I can have access to that, but social media has turned off all of that. And then I can probably turn it on at like 8 p.m. or something like that. So like this is how my brain works, and I just keep it very rudimentary and very simple, but very focused. And then one thing that I started incorporating that I feel like could be very helpful for people that are listening is that instead of just doing like a gratitude journal or something like that, what I do when I wake up in the morning is that I just like write down a couple of things that are already happening, because when you wake up, like, I mean, I personally can't figure out a way to not go on not go on my phone and look at like some emails and stuff like that. So I let that sink in. I let that happen. It's okay. But then I just like write down. So like I'll put down factual stuff. Like I'll go, okay, I made a few sales. So business wise, this day is like a 8 out of 10. Like so far so good. So that's a win. So that's a win for me. I'm gonna write that down. I did that one, I took the trash out, right? Like I did that one thing. So like that's for love language for my wife. That's like a 10 out of 10, I'm like the garbage man. So I did that, she's super stoked. So like, this is good. So this is good for my soul. I'm saying like, okay, I'm checking some of these boxes. I'm going to be preparing for my live, that's like the next 2 hours or something like that. Or while I was watching Johnny Harris, I got 4 new ideas, and I'm going to say, I got basically the main points for my YouTube live tomorrow. And then productivity, that's like a 7.5 out of 10. So I'll like rate myself like this. And what that does is that it really calms you down and kind of makes you go, a lot has accomplished. Because what was happening before is that I was just like in so much in a hurry. And I feel like we live in that world, like we're just constantly like, you'll pop up and you'll look at my reel, and Qazi's new reel is doing like 7,000 likes and 1,000 shares or something, and you'll be like, well, you're gonna look at your brother and be like, well, what the fuck are we doing with our life?
Put that reel on, come on.
How did you know? How did you know? How did you know?
Yeah. He just posted a YouTube video 5 hours ago.
Get to work. Get to work. What are we doing? So fucking
so
true
you know
what
I
you're
mean?
talking about. Oh my god, please continue.
So I personally feel like this new exercise is really helping me break that. And break the guilt, the endless guilt that we get as freelancers and as people that don't do 9 to 5, but we work 25/8. So it kind of breaks that, right? So like it just, and then I do it throughout the day. So let's just say I take an L, right? Like, I mean, there's whatever, right? Like, I mean, I got a call and it's like the brakes are bad on my car, and that's going to be $1,200 or something like that. So that's an L. I'll write it down. And I'll say that's okay, because yesterday we made X, which covers for this.
Wow.
So it's fine.
I feel like you're organizing your mind, because
Your
if you
thoughts,
don't,
yeah.
because I've done something like that. I do something like that every day, but in more of a meditative state. I try to write it down sometimes, but it's usually in my head. We do like a 10-minute meditation every morning, and I clearly understand what you're doing, because if you don't mention this to yourself, you keep judging yourself throughout the day. When bad things happen, when small L's happen, they seem extremely big. But then when you start writing it down or telling yourself about all the smaller victories that actually do count, they accumulate over time, you tend to look back at that. So when something bad happens, you're like, you know what, I think I'm good. We've done a lot today. Good stuff are happening. And that works really well. And I do recommend it to everybody listening and watching. It's worked for us. It's clearly worked for you as well.
It helps so much, and it's just basically like, I mean, I think, again, I'm going to date myself, and that concept doesn't even exist with the new solid-state drives. But remember the old drives, like you would have defragmentation software. So like you'll run like a defrag, and that's what it did. And then the drive works a lot faster, right? Like it was optimized, and that's what it is for our brain, right? And with everything coming at us at 200 miles an hour, it's very important to like kind of slow it down in the moment. So like I'm learning, like, for this exercise, it's not very effective if it's like has been, like if you do it like at the end of the night, because your feelings might have changed completely. But like when you do it in the moment, you just like stop yourself, and like you stop yourself from spiraling. I mean, the actual like psychological term for it is cognitive distortion. And then what it is like, our brain, we all have our own narratives. And it's like my narrative is that I will start creating narratives about like what could happen if this happened. Oh, the brakes went back.
Dude, we are king of narratives. We could do a 10 season, 10 episode of
Game of Thrones of narratives right now, bro.
What if that happened? What if we didn't do that? What if we did that? Oh
Dude,
my
I
God,
feel like this is a therapy session right now with Qazi. It's like, it's so true. Okay, continue. I'll tell you a little story about us as well after this.
But it's just 100% that, right? So like, I mean, we always laugh, like my wife and I, because I'll just go $1,200 for this, this for this and this for that. Like, I don't know, man. We have to freaking move to a goddamn trailer park because this shit is just not working. Like, nothing is gonna work. We're losing it all. And she just goes, how fast did you go from like driving a Porsche, having $110,000 studio, and then like you just ended up here within seconds? And it's just, it's all in our minds. And I feel like when we do the defrag like thing that I'm saying, like where you just like stop yourself and you go, this happened, but that money could easily come from like, the mini launch that we did, the flash sale that we did, plus we have a Black Friday sale. But let's just not even worry about like what's in the future. Let's just look at hard facts like data. And because it's in my journal, I can go back and I can just look at like October 10th, this happened. That covers us for this week. We're good. It's fine. And then everything is objective and you're not letting emotions kick in. But go ahead, share your story.
Dude, it's so crazy what you're talking about because we go through this every day and everybody should know that these are states of mind that changes. There are some days that literally me and Faraz think that we are the kings of the world. We are going to meet Elon Musk, likes of Elon Musk. We are going to be the richest, the biggest, the most successful. And there are days that we are thinking, what if we don't have money for food? And what if we have to evacuate this house? Like, there is literally two other sides of the story. And the only way we realize we can go through this is just do the work no matter how we feel. It doesn't matter how we feel. We just need to do the work that we plan to do.
Yeah, and on the image of what people see on Qazi's YouTube or our YouTube, people have this mentality, for example, when they watch us, they're like, oh my God, you guys are the closest brothers we've seen. How do you guys have such a great relationship? Well, you don't see behind the scenes. I mean, okay, let's be honest. We are extremely close. Like, I've rarely seen any brothers as close as us. And I assume you are very close with your brother as well, based on the story that you mentioned. But behind the scenes, especially now that we're working together, we're literally spending 24 hours of every single day together. There are bound to be arguments because we both want to achieve greatness. And if you're trying to achieve greatness, you will have arguments because you're both trying to be the best. And so there are times where suddenly, for example, we're taking a shot, a scene, and then I misspell something or I say something wrong, and then Farah just tells me off, just like, do it again. And then in my mind, I'm like, did this motherfucker just judge what I said? And then I'm thinking, I'm like, wait, does this mean that he thinks he's better than me? Actually, yesterday he told me this thing, and if I don't actually talk to him in that moment, I'm going in this freaking spiral. Whereas if I just calm down, I'm like, maybe he didn't even mean that. Like, calm the fuck down. Like, if we don't talk to each other and if we don't quickly try to think about what happened, the day will spiral out. And we've had times where we argued and then we didn't talk to each other for like 2 hours until we figured out, okay, it's not even worth it. Let's just get back to work.
Record the video. Come on.
So when we started the YouTube channel, dude, the arguments, sometimes when they started, they would last 2 hours, so we wouldn't talk. And then we've gotten so good at it now, it usually lasts about a minute, because we know we got to get back to work anyway, so the emotions don't matter, so we now know how to work together. But the cognitive distortion, I'm going to steal that from you, and we're going to use that more often. Now, Waqas, I want to get a little bit more technical. We've talked about your story, and I loved it. I truly appreciate that you shared it. So much value, not just for us, but for everybody listening and watching, I'm sure. I want to get a bit more technical about grading itself, what you do for a living and what you're truly a master of. Using color to tell stories, I stumbled upon this YouTube video about the movie Whiplash. It has this slightly yellowish tint, sometimes green in some of the shots. It's a very stylized choice to go for that specific look, but it's definitely conveying a message, throughout the entire film. I want to get your thoughts on all of this, on what do you think about telling stories through color, because this is what you do, and how do you think people are treating it in 2023, generally in different industries, in 3D, in VFX, in movies and all that?
I think it's so powerful. I mean, the reason why between editing and cinematography, they're my true love, because this is where the filmmaking journey started, and I love it. And the physical aspect of it, having a camera and going outside and shooting something, and that thrill of just like, oh my God, can't wait to see what it turns into, like how it comes out. Like I love it so much. But the reason why I don't miss either of those things, now that I grade most of the time, is because it just is that much more rewarding. There is also like an instant gratification, like I do something and I just see the magic, right? Like, I mean, and not to mention that I have the luxury to be working with like the best artists bringing the best work. So like the stuff is already so good. So like when you're exchanging the emails and you're just sitting there like this and you're like, dude, just send it. Like, let me just pull it up and let me see what happens. And then you're a chef, right? Like you just start cooking and start throwing something and you look at it and you go, oh my God, it can go in so many directions. I personally feel like the storytelling aspect is so powerful with color grading. And one of my all-time favorite directors, and the reason why I'm in this field, is David Fincher, right? So like David Fincher is the reason why like I got obsessed with filmmaking and I took that path. I mean, because I was going to school for network engineering and small business. But you look at his movies, and when you talk about Whiplash, it's very heavily, influenced by The Social Network, and that's sort of like color. Because if you think about it, it's like, almost like a monochromatic, like everything kind of lives in that quadrant, like it's a sickly yellowish green, it just but like think about how good that is, because when we think about that color, the yellowish green, if we close our eyes, we almost like think sick and puke, like type thing comes to our mind. And then you associate what's happening in Whiplash and this guy's, what he's going through and what he's been put through. So like now close your eyes and think about his life and those colors, how symbiotic and easy it is to just connect the dots and go, oh my God, like nothing else makes sense. Because if I take that and grade it with natural colors and make it look like this, then the emotion has to come from the face and the words and all of that. So color grading is such like a ninja, like a thing that just sits in the bones, in the foundation of the film, of the story, but it does so much heavy lifting. So when we see like a Target commercial, like during Christmas time, and it makes me want to go get the things, whatever the hell they're selling, is because, they have a glow on and everybody is like so happy and the light that's coming through got like a beautiful haze and it's warm and all that. But then you see it through your eyes, it is and it isn't that, right? So it's just like if you see it in real life, I'm saying. So then you see it like on, and you get that experience, and there's a visceral quality to it. It makes you do that thing. Or when we watch a movie like Fight Club, and the blacks are just so crushed that you're watching it, and you almost have to like kind of go like this and focus what is really going on. And that's the whole psychological aspect of like what he's going through, right? Like through insomnia and like so much is happening. It's like he's just not sure about what is happening. And then we as viewers watching it are struggling through like, oh my God, like what, we're kind of doing that while we're just looking at the screen. And that wouldn't happen if I just bring the levels up and make it look like this, So I think in 2023, we are because like when I started my channel, those were the early days of color grading, and not everybody was selling LUTs, from the back of their truck. And like, it just wasn't like, a thing that everybody was doing. And I feel like there was not a lot of people talking about the taste-making aspect. Like, and then you see people just show you. That's why I always say ditch the taste-making aspect of, or not taste-making, I'm sorry. Ditch the technical aspect of it, because I have like merch that says like, fuck theory, get results. Yeah. And it's like the truest thing. It's like the truest thing. Like, I don't give a shit about the theory. Like, I mean, I don't want to sit here and watch something for 7 hours to maybe get something out of it or maybe not. Like, show me, Don't do the talking, show me. So it's like with my tutorials, the difference is like when you watch it, I started with like, hey, this is what we're going to get in the first 10 seconds. We're going to start here. We're going to end up here. You want to go on this journey with me? or you can't stand like my voice and you think like I'm too in your face, get the fuck out, you know? But if you want to hang out and if you want to get these results, we're going to get results. I'm not going to take you in like the color management and how the color management is set up and like, you know, fucking roll my eyes all day long. Like, it's like all those things are taken by AI, like when Resolve 19 comes out. Like right now we have two tabs, SDR, HDR. By like 2024, when Resolve 19 comes out, we'll probably won't even have a tab because the software got so fucking smart that it knows what camera footage is coming in and what monitor is showing it on, and there goes 90% of the nerds like career, because everybody who's teaching you the technical mumbo jumbo that nobody gives a fuck about, because at the end of the day, you got inspired watching, you're not even a colorist, and you watch this video on Whiplash, it inspired you. You and I are here talking about it, and you brought up that thing. Why? Because you're saying, well, you know, it was greater than HDR, Dolby Vision, and da 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 da. You're not saying any of that, you know. And this is the thing that I try to tell people, that at the end of the day, it's all about the taste. And how I'm seeing it is that in 2023, the world is like in a infant phase right now. So like, because everybody is grading right now the trend is, how shocking can we make it? Because if I do a subtle whiplash grade on Instagram right now, they'll probably like delete my account. They'll say, Qazi, shame on you. What did you do? So I have to go from like log and then so freaking bright that when you watch it, you have like blood freaking squirting out of your eyes. And you go, and then it just goes 1 million shares, and it's crazy. So we're going through like that phase right now, right? Like it's the infomercial age of color grading, like where everything is too much on the nose. I'm talking about consumers. Everybody that's like adapting it right now and basically just doing it because this is how it should be done, compared to like how directors do it, how Hollywood does it at that level. Like the people that I have a lot of respect for, like people that you're mentioning, like David Fincher or like Whiplash, like, you know, these artists are very much like getting in there in the bones and going, let's tell a story doing that way. Christopher Nolan, right? Like when you watch Interstellar and you look at those colors, they're so authentic because they're graded that way. So Christopher Nolan doesn't really encourage a lot of like secondaries and going in and like twisting and turning your image like on the back end. What he believes in is like the old school of color grading, which is called color timing, which is just basically you messing with your offsets. So you're just taking your image and you're tilting it basically like, do I want to make it green and then everything kind of leans in that? Or do I want to make it magenta and then everything leans into that? Do I want to make the image dark? Do I want to make it bright? But you're not necessarily going gain up and then lift still here, gamma up, gamma down. No, you're just moving the entire image, and then photo, you know, like when we actually see it, perceive it, like when we're watching it, it is a very natural response, because we're like, if I was 2 stops underexposed and I took a picture, it might have looked like that. And if I had my temperature set to some odd temperature, 5600 Kelvin with like X amount of tint, and then if I taken a picture in my room like that, it would have looked that orange. You know what I mean? So he's making those changes, and those are very, like, you know, those are thought through. And I encourage everybody that when you're getting into the world of color grading, like go study, like, you know, those movies and just be very ballsy with your grades. I mean, one of the conversations that I have all the time is that everybody, the number one comment is always like, but I like Rec 709 better. I'm like it's always like, but I like Rec 709 better. And I'm like, get the fuck, like, no, you don't. Like let me tell you what you like better. When you go, do you like Blade Runner better? Like, do you like Blade Runner? And they're like, I fucking love Blade Runner. I'm like, that shit ain't fucking Rec 709. Like, that's not Rec 709, you know, from like how it's shot to how it's graded. So get the fuck out of here. You don't even know what you want, but what you want is what you see. And what you see is like these natural images nowadays in 2023 really pushed. So people going in their contrast, push it, clean it up, and then that's what everybody's putting out. So then as we develop like a bad taste. We just look at it and we go, this is good, green is bad. This is good, red is bad. But then you go see Deacons making Blade Runner like isolated from the next reel and the next reel and the next reel. You're in a theater in front of that big black screen and you watch and experience Blade Runner, and it goes from like an orange palette all of a sudden to green palette as soon as they walk in, and then everything is green, and then they come out and everything is like sterile and clean and bleach bypass, and you see that and you go, holy shit, man, I'm going through so many emotions. And it's like, I'm following it. It doesn't matter how complex the story is. The color kind of ties it together. Like, I can grade something without underneath saying 1970.
Yeah.
I can just grade it where I can put you there. How fucking powerful is that?
Farhad, I'm blown away. But so for whoever is listening now and they want to experience this magic, they want to be part of it, they want to tell stories. In 2023, because things have changed since you started your journey, what is the best way to learn color grading? How do you recommend people to start?
My channel.
What other answer did you expect from that?
Best answer ever.
Yeah,
So guys, you know
exactly.
what to do.
Like,
You guys know what to do.
Yeah. I always tell people I'm a businessman first, artist second,
I love that.
No, but the thing is, I would say start with, oh my God,
Start
man.
with my channel.
Shotdeck.com. It is, oh my God. It's like, and I have so much respect for Lawrence Sher, and he's the cinematographer of Joker.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so he's the one who, and I had an opportunity to work with him on a Kanye and Drake's video, and then he was sitting right here, which was super dope.
shit.
And like we were working on that. And what's really funny is that when you walk out that door, I have a Joker poster up there. I'm such a big fan.
Oh, so he
walked
saw
into
that
my-
the first thing he walked in.
Yeah, he
Awesome.
walked in here, and I'm like, dude, like I'm a huge fan. And it's just this guy. I have mad respect for him, and he is the one who created ShotDeck.com. It is the best platform out there to just type in who's your favorite, right? So like Roger Deakins, you type in Roger Deakins, it's like basically a Google of like pulling up images, right? So like then you just go Roger Deakins, you pull him up, and it doesn't only just pull up all his images, it will also give you similar, Deacon's images. You can randomize it. Like, do you want to see like randomize order? Do you want to see like most popular? So like, what do people like the most? So like, if you're new, right? If you're new to this world and you want to start developing a taste, you can just go there and just look at popular choices, and then look at those palettes, right click, download, bring it in Resolve, pull up scopes, like throw it in Resolve, pull up scopes, study it. Where does everything sit? Like that tells you all the story. Like, you want to create magical looks, just go steal like the best work. It's always that. Like, everybody does that. Kanye is like one of the freaking best artists out there, and he does samples. Like, his best music is like all samples, and that's what's so hot, because we can basically relate to it, and it brings nostalgia and like all of those things, and then he's dropping his beats on top of it, and we're like, let's roll. Like, this is cooler shit than like making it from scratch. So color grading is no different. Like, if I'm working on a movie where the director goes, I'm looking for like a Sicario type look, then I'm gonna go on shotdeck.com. I'm gonna pick like 8 different locations, day, night, all that, different lighting conditions. I'm gonna bring images from Sicario. I'm gonna load them in Resolve, and I'm gonna study them, and then I'm gonna look at how close can we get to that. That conversation is very important with your client. You can just look at those images and then go, hey man, like, your project is shot very differently than what you want. So you want to be upfront with your client and kind of tell them what I can and can't do, right? So like I worked on a music video where they just shot it really like horror movie style. So like the contrast ratio is out of control. It's like 8-to-1, right? So like it's really crazy. Like everybody has raccoon eyes, and then they give me that project, and they were like, make it look like Blackpink, like it's poppy and it's like so bright and it's so great. And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? Like, and they're like, well, what are we paying you for? And I'm like, I don't fucking know what you thought you were paying me for. Like, I don't, like, I like to do easy stuff,
How crazy can you get with your grades, especially when you're working with clients? Because they definitely had the idea before they came to you. I mean, sometimes I assume you're in the process from beforehand, but assuming that they come to you after the project is shot, how crazy can you get? Because clearly you know your way of storytelling with colors. How crazy do you get with your grades? Like, let's say a whiplash level, you know what, I'm just going to go crazy with this because I know this is going to be right for you.
Yeah. The best thing that I would say, especially, I think this is a very good conversation, because I love having conversations where people can actually apply these things and get like results, see the results. that conversation is very important with your clients. So like, one, you have to pry and probe, like ask them questions, like just go, what exactly are you looking for? Like, give me some samples, give me some more samples, and get as much data as possible. And then ask all the questions like, hey, how was it shot? How was this gig done? And then look at it and go what you can and can't do. Start with Rec 709, because when you can slap Rec 709 LUT on it, you can start seeing the lighting ratios and things like that. Like, where can we put it? How far can it go? And then based on that, you can have a dialogue, like I said, what I can't and can do. But the thing is, like, what I would say is that the bigger the clients, the easier the job, right? And I just finished, I hope that person is not listening to this podcast, but I'm also not going to say any names, but I just finished the hardest project of my life.
Oh.
And it was like an indie film. Oh my God. I don't even want to get into it because I got to pull up my journal and start writing some stuff.
Hold on a second. I need to write my feelings down. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to rate my feelings right now, you know? But I mean, so it was like one of the craziest things, and it's because there's no pipeline. There's no proper process. And I would highly encourage everybody, don't be that guy that shoots something, comes home, grabs the files and throws it on a fucking desktop. Don't do that. Like, be organized, like do things right, because it can help you so much. And then it can help others bring their best, because it ended up taking me way longer. Like, if I would have, like, I literally, when I emailed them and I said, here's your project, and I'm like if I wouldn't have charged you a flat fee, the amount of days that I spent on this, you would be buying me a fucking Tesla. You know? It's like that's the truth, you know? And then he got so excited, like, after watching what it turned out to be, that he's like, I guess I want to buy you a Tesla. You know? So he's like, so he's super stoked. Like, he's happy, and I was like messing around. But what I'm saying is just like, when you don't have everything organized, it's going to be so much more work. So just be kind of careful. When you're starting out, beggars can't be choosers, right? So like, take anything, take everything, just stay humble, don't complain. Like, complaining doesn't do anything. It puts you in the wrong mindset, because even with this movie, so I had allotted 1 to 2 days on it. It ended up taking way longer than that. But every single time, what I did is this. Instead of crying about it and work on it, I had an open communication with my client, and I said, listen, this is not going to get done this week or the next week. It might take a few weeks. He's like, that's okay. And I'm like, that's great, because I want to jump in and work on this when I get a moment of inspiration and when I'm pumped to work on it. Because again, circling back to honesty, I'm like, I still want to give you a product that's going to fucking, you know, I mean, it's going to, your knickers are going to be on the ground, right? So like, after you watch it, so I'm like, you got to give me time to get you there. So it's like, then every time, like, I would get that inspiration and I'm like, oh my God, oh great. Like, this could be, like, we can turn it into, like, because it's a sci-fi film, so there is some good stuff. It just took so much to get that out, you know? But I would just go, oh, like, we can turn it into like a Black Mirror scene, like from that episode. And then I'll go on shotdeck.com and I pull that up. And I'm kind of walking people through this process, because as a colorist, you can't be linear. You got to let your brain go places, but then you also have to kind of have some sort of guardrails to get stuff done, right? So like, I would kind of like let my brain go in places. I'm like, I'm inspired. I want to do that Black Mirror look. Can we do it? I go pull up images from Shot Deck. I bring it in. I start experimenting something. And all of a sudden, a project that would have just like made me hate myself, cuss them out, all those things that I know so many people do. People are just like getting paid, putting food on the table, and then cussing out their clients. Why the fuck are you doing that? You know, it's just like, that's not good business. Like, you know, don't take the gig. If you're going to take the gig, then figure out a way to do it right, and just figure out a way. Like, look at everybody's project as like it's your own, because man, we're creative, bro. And it's like everybody is putting their job on the line to trust the next person work on that thing, like their thing. Like, so like, even if I'm working with like Adidas, like, you know, I did a campaign or a couple of spots for Adidas social media campaign, and that was the easiest gig. Like, it took me a couple of hours to do, because when things are done right, you just barely have to do anything and it just gets done, and you're just laughing. You're like, I'm getting paid this much for this. This is amazing. But you know, it just like, but there's so many things that went into it, right? Like asking the right questions, like establishing yourself to be somewhere, and then having the freaking laser focus vision to be like, I can get it done like this, X, Y, and Z. You have the whole plan laid out. That took fucking 12 years. right? So that took 10,000 hours to like get to that point. For somebody else, like they'll just be doing the hardest stuff. Like, so anyways, like I worked on that Adidas campaign and I got it done so fast. Whereas like this commercial or this short film took me that long. But like I said, I was still in my heart wanting to be authentic to both projects, because I'm like, that Adidas gig and the person that vouched for me and brought that project to me is putting their like reputation on the line. And I can't just sit here and be like, I'm cashing checks. Like, I don't care. And then same thing with this guy. Like, this guy discovered me. He was like so humble and he wanted me to come on this project and do this. And when I committed to that, I'm going to give him 100%. So I feel like that mindset of being like, staying positive. And I think that hack is kind of fun. Like, if you can do where it's just like, if it's going to kill your soul and you're going to be cussing everybody out, like getting it done in 4 days, maybe go back and have a communication and be like, hey man, this thing was like a lot harder than I expected because of X, Y, and Z. I'm not putting anything on you. I'm just saying this is going to take longer. Are you cool with it? And you'll just be surprised like how understanding people usually are.
That was an amazing analogy of the whole process of how to handle your client and how do you need to handle your own mind when dealing with client, because what you mentioned, it happens to, not to me and Faraz, but we have a lot of friends who, you know, cost their clients, get the deal, and then I hope they're not listening.
You want to journal this?
But it's true what you mentioned. I never thought about that, because it's very important, because if you're a freelancer, if you're a creative, if you're someone who's running your own business, pretty much after a few years, you can make decision which clients to take. And if you think that that clients will put you in that state of mind, you better not take it, because you want to enjoy what you create and you want to enjoy what you are putting out there in the world. And like you mentioned, the guy is putting their name on the line for that work too.
I want to ask you a question about AI since you brought it up. You mentioned that, you know, you've seen the growth of Resolve, and you know, you can kind of guess and predict where it's going, where I remember you mentioned this in your live stream as well, where you get in, you sometimes don't even need to do the basics, because it will tell you, okay, you're going overexposed, you're going underexposed. Like it will start talking to you, right? Like every other software when AI is applied to it. Where do you think all of this is going to go in the next 5-10 years? You know, with AI coming in, especially in the field that you're in as a professional colorist, and what recommendations do you have for the younger people who might be considering this, you know, going into it?
I feel like AI, first of all, I mean, I can't even make a prediction for more than 3 months. Because I think about this like last November 20. Because I mean, think about like last November 21st is I think when ChatGPT dropped for public, and then I did a video on it in like January or something like that, and I was already like 5 years too late, you know. So it's just like, you know, people were in it and using it like do all sorts of things. So I feel like all that is changing really, really fast. But I think we just gotta stop with like the, oh my God, like let's do another strike and this is taking our jobs and blah blah blah, because this shit is not going anywhere. Like if any, like I explain AI like this, you know. Think of AI as like a wild horse, and it's literally that. And it all depends on the jockey. Like how good of a jockey are you to control it? And that's my analogy for AI. So it's like, you know, without you, you know, that horse is not, you know, going through the finish line, and it's not winning anybody anything. But you put a good jockey on it and then watch, you know, the fucking magic happens. So I feel like we just need to stay ahead of it. So like with Black Magic and Resolve, I'm very proud like what they're doing. Like their magic mask, you know, their depth map, and like the things that they're incorporating is like single click and boom, all of a sudden throw text behind you, and it just does such a great job. And all those are ran by Neural Engine, and they've been messing with it for a few years. It's like AI is a buzzword now, but they used to call it Neural Engine, and so as in Photoshop, and they've had that for a while, and they're perfecting it on the back end. You know, voice isolation tool in Resolve is absolutely insane. It takes out music. So like if you have like, so what we do for our reels, like where I actually have embedded music, like in my videos, when my editor is cutting those reels, he just goes and throws voice isolation, and it just takes out the music, and it just like leaves your audio as is, and it's just one click. I mean, come on, fucking think about it, you know? So like how far we've come. So it's like, I need to know these tools. Like for us to have creative freedom, we need to be well versed in our tools. So like I'm not saying to anyone that, hey, don't be technical. I'm just saying keep your focus on the results. And I think I would rather like encourage people to learn the neural engine applications in Resolve over the technical mumbo jumbo, like I'm saying, that's going to be taken over in 3 months. Like that stuff is just the technical stuff is gonna go so freaking fast, and then it's gonna be a level playing field. So then what's the difference between you and I as colorists? Because now shot matching is taken care of, this is taken care of, that is taken care of. The only difference between you and I is that I am a fucking library of like color grading, like world, right? Like I'm like an encyclopedia of like, you know, you tell me the emotion and I'll give you 7 recommendations from like movies, and we can go look it up. And then that's what separates me from somebody else. And that's what I always tell people, focus on that. A lot of people don't listen. Like even in my own masterclass, I just keep seeing people going deep into those like some other people. I'm not going to mention anybody, but like, you know, swimming in their Kool-Aid, and then they're regressing. It's like their taste making, they're losing their taste making abilities. And I'm looking at the grades and I'm judging it, and I'm going, well, you used to do like much better work like 6 months ago. Why the fuck are you going backwards? Like, I don't understand what's going on, you know? And it's just because then that person is like, oh man, this, I was watching this video, it's 40 minutes long, and this person shows you like how to cook up a LUT from scratch, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, clients are not paying you for this. Nobody gives a fuck how you made the LUT, you know? Or if you just grab it off the shelf. I'm like, now the tools are so advanced, they use everything that you can to your advantage. Like, what the fuck you're doing? Now we're stepping into the world where everything is automation, and you want to fucking go open up a farm? Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you know, it's just like call DoorDash. Like, you know, just exactly. So it's like, you know, that's the mindset that when you have a mindset like that, like, you know, I bring a lot of haters because of like my very polarizing views, because I will never be in the middle. I think the middle is like the lamest fucking shit ever.
Worst place to be, bro.
Oh my God.
Either you're loved or hated.
It's better to be loved or hated than be ignored, right?
Exactly.
That's the thing.
I think it's better to be hated at times when you're starting out. I got to be honest. If I didn't get like as much hate in the beginning, I wouldn't be where I'm at least from the social media aspect, because it was just so much fire. It was like so much fuel for me, because, you know, people would just come and put doubt in you, right? Like they would just say all the most awful things. Like, you know, you're not cut out for this. You're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. You're doing like in our industry, that's a very big thing. And it's just like such a fucking eye roll, like where they just tell you, this is not how it's done.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, you're just kind of rolling your eyes. You're like, okay, tell that to my clients that paid me $234,000 last year. How the fuck it's done. Like, you know, like, what do I know? So it's like, you know, so then I have the trajectory to back it up, look at my tax returns and go, shut the fuck up, Anonymous 76. Like, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. But then these people are crushing so many people's dreams. So I get pretty passionate about it. The reason why I blast them on my social media and things like that, like, you know, I want to work on a freaking merch that says bully the bullies, is because I am not so much like the Gary Vee in that sense, because you could be Gary Vee when you're at his level and you have 100,000 employees and that kind of thing. You could just sit back and be so zen, and everybody's just like, I want to kill you right now. And you're like, I want to hug you. Like, that's cute. But when you're like a one person running and gunning and doing all of that stuff, you don't have time to take your time from that and then see a really ugly message and go, hey man, who hurt you? Like, do you want me to buy you a cup of coffee? Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Like, I don't have time. Exactly. I'm going. I don't need negative energy, you know? So I just feel like I feel so strongly about it, because I just feel like I had the trajectory to look back and know that I'm successful, so this is all bullshit. But what if there is an 18-year-old guy in India who's trying to come up, and he's trying to make tutorials from what he's learning, and he's just sharing his passion, and these fuckers go there and crush his dreams, and then he stops making content. And it's like, those are the people that I'm fucking protecting without wearing a goddamn cape. You know?
I love that last part.
No, but that's very true. I think a lot of people have stopped, or they don't even start posting because they're scared of the comments. They're scared of how people will judge them. Because, come on, if we watch anybody's first video, beside your first video who got 5K views, everybody starts from ground zero, right? 30 views, 20 views, which out of 22 are our mom and dad. One is my own phone. It's like that, right? Everybody starts from somewhere.
Probably 10 of them. I think they reloaded the page multiple times.
But it's very important to do not care about what people say. And what you're saying is very true. Sometimes go right at them and say that, hey, if I'm loud people tell me and Faraz that we are too loud, we shout too much, but come on, look at the views sometimes. If you're
The
shouting.
reason it's actually working against some other videos is because we're shouting. Like that is actually the selling factor for a lot of the videos because it's different. It's unique in a way. And some people will hate it, and that's okay.
One of the tools that is dabbling with that space, like the creative space with AI, is called Color Lab AI. And it's been around for a while. And basically, that tool is doing that thing like where you go, I like whiplash color. And you can just click on it, and then it takes your footage and it creates a LUT, like a 3D LUT. So it goes in the bones of your image, and then it pulls up as much as it can, and it gets pretty close to it. So that is the only thing that is a little bit scary, like even for me, like somebody who's creative, because I'm like, holy shit, like if this thing gets good, I'm happy that it's not really good right now. But I mean, it can still work.
How do you feel when you see something like that though?
I think it's still going back to the same example of like a wild horse and a jockey, because it's like because here's the thing, right? Like, I mean, I mentioned a little bit that I never hit like a rough patch in my social media journey up until recently. And why is that? It's not just Reels. Another big aspect is that there are 10 million courses on color grading. There are 10 million videos on color grading. So now Waqas, Qazi, and DaVinci Resolve don't trend on YouTube like I am on, like, yeah, I might sometimes, but not all the time. Now there's like a bunch of other people that barely use Resolve to the abilities that I do. But they just use it as like, hey, this is our editor, and I create content about general things, and then they are trending on so many other areas that it's just like, it just brings more attention to that brand compared to somebody who's very niche. Like, I mean, I just put out a video, iPhone versus Alexa, and then in the title it says a colorist's perspective. So then it just takes your filmmaker audience, 2 million people, and it brings it down to 20,000 people, Yeah. But that's a decision that I'm making, because I can tell people right now, go for the depth, don't go horizontal, don't worry about it. Like, I know too many people, their videos hit 200 views and they close 4 sales, and they sell like a $500 product, to those 4 people out of like the 200 views. And it's like the conversion is fucking out of control because it's so deep, the depth matters so much more. And nobody cares about, like, because the reels are forgotten so fast that sometimes I'm doing the same reel again. I'm shooting the same stuff, and I'm like, I go, oh shit. Like, I watch it and I'm like, didn't we do a reel like this like last month? Oh, fuck. So it's just like, there's so much, and nobody cares, you just keep doing it. So like my advice would be like, on that front. But AI, like, yes, like there's a lot of things like that I feel like first impression, especially when it comes to creativity, yeah, a little shocking, like when you just go, when it's good at what it does, but then it just goes the same thing. Like, okay, Photoshop, generative fill, it can do all the things, but now it depends on you, how creative you want to get and ask it the right questions, or how people are getting creative. They'll shoot a thing like this, and they go in Photoshop, and then they expand the background, and they're bringing it in. So that's a new trend, and that's so smart. I don't think like that, right? So like now it's just going to become more of like, we're going to be more seasoned. So like when I'm talking like this, let me not have my hands go off frame, because then when I go in Photoshop, I can't expand it. So then I'm being trained to like talk like this, and I'm doing a lot of this, So I feel like that's why repetition is so important, and having this experience is invaluable, because AI is just not all of a sudden going to make you get 5 million views and blow up like all your things, because like the nuances that you and I are talking about, right? Like even this thing, right? So it's like, I wouldn't do this if I'm not seasoned to be talking in front of the camera, and be okay with like, it's okay, man. Like, I mean, I talk with my hands, and my hands go here, but I guess I'm going to learn to just make my hands go dinosaur style, and they just stay right here,
I love that. That's the best way to respond to that question, because there's no way you can fight AI. And when I see people fighting it in the comments, I'm like, you're wasting your time. There's no way you can stop any of this. What you can do is just go deeper and learn about the craft that you've been meaning to, and just go as hard as you can, because at the end of the day, you're still competing with other human beings. And if you're better than the other human beings, you're still going to be ahead, because if everybody's using AI, everybody starts from the same playing field, like you mentioned. If you're just better at your craft, you're going to end up having better rewards come your way. I and Farhad, and I think everybody watching and listening right now, after all of the amazing things that you talked about, are curious to see what we should look forward to when it comes to Waqas Qazi, the channel, your work. If you have any courses coming up, if you have any merch coming up, what should we be looking forward to?
Before I answer this, I do want to take a second and just kind of leave like a quick little advice for people that are creating content, because I'm assuming you have a lot of content creators.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I like to share like the journey that I'm on and what's working, you know, and like that could help other people too. So like even like when I mentioned like the L's that I was taking with reels, and it's like one of the things that I always wanted is do reels that are based on, that are dense and that has like tips, right? Like, so like now when you're saying you're loving the new reels, and that's a great feedback to hear, but these reels are a lot harder. They take so much time. And then these reels are like, you know, we're talking about like actual tangible like skills that you can gain within like 30 to 50 seconds and go apply it and get really crazy results. And I always wanted my short form content to be like that, but somehow in the past it never banged at all. So then I just reverted back to like time lapse of me grading, and that gets so many views, or before and after reels, but it was empty to me, and it is still empty, because what's the value? Like if I'm not a surfer on social media, and if I'm a content creator, that is okay, but that's not really hot to me. The people that I follow are the people that are giving me some value, because I just want to go to the source and get like those words and or get those tools and go apply it. So the journey was crazy, and the breakthrough happened with the most like rudimentary level of like filmmaking, which was we kept trying out like bunch of these different things, and let's do 10 tips in like 50 seconds, and let's do this and that. And it all came down to this, like where I just went back to like my editing days when I was working on like a commercial for Nissan or whatever. And it was like, you know, each commercial would be featuring one thing. And if it's like the infotainment system, the whole commercial was infotainment. And then the next commercial was about performance. And then the next commercial was about whatever. And we told one story in 22 seconds. You know, this is how long the ads are. And then you have call to action that's like about 8 seconds, so like 30 seconds long. And then I basically brought back that into my reels. And I just like, I was working with my editor, and I said, fuck it. Let's ditch 10 points in one reel. Let's only show 1 point. Let's simplify it. And let's focus on one thing, and then let's try that. And we try it, and all of a sudden, like we were getting crazy numbers, like only 800 likes, but then we will have like 400 saves, and we would have like 120 shares. So like the numbers were like really crazy. I'm like, dude, there's a lot of potential in this. Like I don't care. I don't give a shit about likes anymore. I'm looking at the depth, like how many people are saving it and all that. And then we kept messing with that. And it's almost like, you know, the example like the Michelangelo, you know, how did you know, like carve David? And he's like, I just like chipped away everything that wasn't David, you know? And it's just like that kind of example, like where you just go, what else can I take out? So then I would just be like, well, this is getting too busy. Like, let's take this out, take that out. And then I came up with the concept of like, which is like a pretty old concept, but it's like a cold open. I'm like, not a lot of people do cold opens in reels. Like, what if we take the hardest hit part, and I'm talking about like tips-based reels. What if we take like the one thing that says, hey, this is my favorite effect for this, and then boom, they see the result, and then it just cuts to the title of the short, and then it goes into the short. So I'm like, what if we do that? And then we do that, and that video gets like 220,000 views, like 1,700 like shares, I don't even know, like, you know, 4,000, 5,000 like saves, 20,000 likes. And then as soon as that happened, I'm like, okay, dude, like now. So what it came down to is that at the end of the day, it was just about like storytelling. So like I didn't want to just like start the story by just saying focus on storytelling, because everybody can say that, but if you can't connect the dots, it doesn't make any sense. But what it really came down to wasn't the like jazzy graphics or sound effects. And so now we're getting fancy with it. So like when you're watching it and you're giving me that feedback, and I'm like humbled and stoked to like hear that and then relay that to my editor. But ultimately it was just like me on my whiteboard, and then just like keep just scratching things and going, what else can we do? And it's just like the dude in a lab, you know, and it's like we're just making something, and it's not hitting it, and we got to get that blue meth, you know, like we got to get that.
Like Heisenberg, the Heisenberg.
It's just a try and error. And sometimes I tell Faraz, how great is is that social media is free to post. Imagine every single time that you wanted to experiment, you had to pay.
Like $2. Let's say just $2. You would be so hesitant.
Exactly. Now you can just try out. You have one idea, you think this kind of tips will work, try it out. You have an idea that you have to start with a banger intro, try it out. And what you mentioned was so amazing. Go on the whiteboard, write down all your ideas, try different things and see which one hits. And then you can capitalize on that. So are you now focusing more on that type of content for your shorts?
I am so happy and I just feel so blessed that it finally started to work and it's being very consistent. So like we don't have so much of like finger crossing like when we uploaded, like it actually is banging because the thing is that the brand cachet is there. Like the channel is so big that if you just feed it the right amount of stuff and if Instagram like gets in your corner, like it can start like just sharing it to a lot of people because there's already so much like audience built up into that. And I'm just so excited that this is happening because like I said, I was losing my motivation putting out before and afters because I'm not really sold on. I still want to do it. It's fun to like kind of have like a portfolio like pieces, right? They're still cool, but people like yourself, like, you know, you guys want to go deep. It doesn't bring you value. You don't just look at those and go, oh my God, like I follow Qazi's channel for only these before and afters because I will feel guilty if you say that. I'll be like, dude, I'm wasting their life. Like all they do is just sit on my channel and just go through these before and afters and getting dumber by the day, you know? It's like they're not really learning something. So we're super stoked. That's the direction that we're going in. Like I feel after a very long time, I feel really confident in the short form content strategy because it's just been such a like, let's try this, let's try that, like photos, okay, personal posts, let's do this, let's do that, let's throw a fat cat in there, like let's try anything and everything and see what sticks and finally finding that like base because that's why I love YouTube so much, that it's very predictable platform for me. Like if I put in time, it yields results. Like last week I put in 3 days instead of 1 day to make a video and it was 1 of 10. And in 1 week, it's sitting at like 50 or 60,000 views and the trajectory is like this. And it's like putting in that effort got results. And it's like Instagram is not that, unfortunately. TikTok is not that. You will still do your best work and you upload it and it's just like, boop, like nothing happened. And you're like, oh no, like I did so much, you know? So having a formula, but it's not stale, because think about this. When you look at somebody like me who has 269 videos, a lot of them are shorts too, but 269 videos on YouTube. Now imagine pulling content from that library. So this is what's happening. It's like a lot of data mining. My editor is just going through years of content and then he uploads selections for me. And then I watch the selections and I say, ditch these 4, they suck. These 2 are great. Now, then he goes to work and then he perfects them. And then we're following that like method. And then we go in and sometimes I'll look at it like, I mean, we just finished a reel and I looked at it and I'm like, yeah, but I mean, we shouldn't have PIP. We shouldn't have picture in picture here. We should just blow it up and make it full screen and then superimpose, you know, like that little like slider, like where I'm making changes. So we're still improving it day by day. And that's the process that keeps me alive and gets me so excited because it's a little tinkering here, a little tinkering there. We're working on like the titles. Sometimes the titles bang too. Sometimes the hashtag. It's so many things. And you're just constantly like focusing on, but having a direction is so important because now we know what works and we can set our mind at ease and go, okay, now let's optimize. Because when you don't get to the optimization phase, you're just kind of stuck in a purgatory and you're watching Jason's content and you're like, what if I try Jason's thing? What if I try Qazi's thing? What if I try Nick's thing? Like, what if I, you know, and then people are so confused when they come on your channel and you're like, dude, what the fuck is this? Like, what's going on? Like, you know, just have something, you know? Yeah. So, I mean, this is like the answer goes all over the place, but I'm just kind of sharing my inner thoughts, like what I'm going through in my process.
It's super important, especially coming it from you because you are managing a huge YouTube channel, a huge Instagram channel, which long form and short form content are 2 different beasts. You cannot even treat them the same way. I thank you for saying that because our audience, some of them are focused on short form, some of them are focused on long form, so I think they can get a lot of value. But I want to go back to Faraz's question because I think a lot of people would be expecting what is coming from Qazi. Is it a new masterclass? What kind of tutorials they can expect? Merch? What is, because I think we have 3 more months until the end of the year. So what are the plans for the rest of the year?
So right now, the 100% of the focus currently is on YouTube, because if there's one thing that I've learned in the last 3 years being in this world and building my brand, is that YouTube is, my God, man, it's everything. It just, I cannot put enough emphasis on it. Like, it's too great. It's almost too good where you're just like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just start charging us 100 a month just to even upload videos on YouTube.
Are you talking from a exposure perspective or monetary perspective, or just the concept of you being able to educate people on a long form content? What is it about YouTube content that you love so much?
What he said, everything all at once, you know, so
Everything everywhere all at once.
So what it is that, you know, YouTube is the platform that's going to get you the biggest sponsorship deals, right? Like, people are going to want to pay you in peanuts, like on Instagram, right? Like, they're just going to say, like, even the biggest brands, because they just know like anybody else can do it. So they'll just come to you and they'll be like, hey, promote this. And you're like, oh, what's the compensation? And they were like, well, we'll send you a fucking water bottle. That's the you know, so it's just like, it's that. That's not how it is on YouTube. Like, I mean, you just get like, those emails are fucking legit. These guys are coming in hot and they'll go, we want to do this. Like, what are you thinking? They don't fuck around. Like, you can throw pretty big numbers. Like, you'll just be surprised, like, how, like, what can happen. And it's not just my channel, like big channels, like even when you have a smaller channel and if your content is really good, that's why I always say, don't take YouTube, like, I personally just think that nobody should be only uploading content. I think the consistency with content and the content war, like I need to post 3 things a day, I think that is a thing of 2020. I think people should stop doing that. I'm telling you right now. Like, I have the most growth I've seen on Instagram when I got 30,000 followers in 30 days was when I was making 3 posts a week: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Weekends are off because weekends are my slow days. I can just see the data. And then I just did it every other day. And it kind of built that like thing of like, when this fucking shit drops, when he drops something, we got to watch it. Instead of just like, dude,
bombard them.
It did his like 17th post. It doesn't even matter how good it is. Like, if Nolan starts putting out 1 movie a year, nobody gives a fuck about Nolan, you know? And it's just like, and I'm just saying, like, people should start thinking like that, but that doesn't mean don't make content. I'm not saying like when I'm not putting out content, I'm being lazy. Just more work and thought and everything is going into it. And like what I just shared, right? Like, we're just going back and forth. We're perfecting it. We're finding the fucking sauce. And then we're very methodical with it. So like right now, we have these shorts planned out for the next 3 weeks, right? So like now they're just these super saturated like shit that's so good, it's gonna go like on those days, but I don't need to be like 2 a day, like 4 a day. It didn't do anything. And I just looked at the data and I'm like, it doesn't translate into anything. And I think that's one thing that I want to say. Going back to YouTube, the reason why I'm so hot on YouTube is because you get a completely different like type of audience, just like how you get a completely different type of audience on Spotify. So like the average view duration, the AVD on Spotify is going to be 2 or 3 times, or maybe like 5 times compared to YouTube. But the AVD on YouTube is going to be pretty high too. But the AVD on Instagram is probably like fucking 6 seconds, right? you gotta look at it like that. Like, if I'm selling $1,000 course, you think somebody's gonna buy for spending 6 seconds with me and like, you know, jump in bed with me like that? Or do you think that they're gonna do that if they actually on average spend 5 minutes per video on YouTube and then listen to my podcast for 25 minutes and 30 minutes? And then that $1,000 purchase decision is a no-brainer, because I get messages like, hey, my wife and I, we drove from Utah to California, and that's like a 12-hour drive. And they were like, we listened to nothing but your podcast. That's 12 hours of like me screaming, shouting, cussing. That's like that, you know, that's a lot of like, you know, listening to Qazi, and somebody did that. So you think that if I just go to him and go, hey, I'm doing a consulting, I'm going to do 2 calls a month with you and completely change the game for you in the next 3 months, and the product is $5,000. You think it's hard for me to like sell him? No, it's a piece of cake. No. He's just going to be like, send me a fucking PayPal link. But do you think I can do the same? The one of the 5 million people that saw my reel, and I go to them and I'll be like, they'll be like, who the fuck are you? I'll be like, dude, that guy that you liked the video, remember? Like a couple of shorts, man. As a matter of fact, like you like that. And they're just gonna be like, dude, I don't remember. Like I don't know who you are.
He was
So
like, I like
that's why-
100 other videos too at the same time.
That's why YouTube is very important. And I feel like even people that are listening to you or you guys, whatever, if you are finding your stride on Instagram, whatever, this is the moment. Like when you have traffic coming in, no matter what the platform is, when you have healthy traffic coming in, everything should be funneled into YouTube, because I'm telling you, dude, like when I do a launch, I'll spend 14 grand out of my pocket during a launch, like on a minimum end, and the money will 2x it or 3x it or something, but I will make one YouTube video and get like 30 sales. It just like, you can't put it in words of the power of like YouTube, even when you go in and ask. So my focus right now for the rest of the year is like, if you watch my last 3 videos, it's like the quality has just fucking skyrocketed. So it's like I'm really just went back to 2012, 2015 days of like when I was an editor. And it's like I'm even shutting off the color grading mind, and I'm pulling all of those skills as a professional editor, and I'm just like, boom, instilling all of that into my channel. And I just want to, I don't like competition. Like I don't want to be worrying about like, you know, Joe and this guy and that guy that's kind of coming up in the color grading space. I just want to smoke them so fucking hard and be in a league in a place where these guys just go, dude, I don't even fucking know. I mean, this guy is like, I mean, he's like a fucking one flew over the cuckoo's nest, you know? He's just
Fuck. No, but bro, we feel that energy. Like the way you post, the consistency. I think you posted the video about how to make your DaVinci Resolve run faster, 75% faster. And then 5 hours ago, that was just 1 week ago, less than a week ago.
Yeah.
And then you posted the iPhone 15 versus Alexa 6-7 hours ago. That shows this type of quality, this type of length of video in this short amount of time. It's really, really impressive. And that shows that you are really working hard. And when I see you posting stories 2-3 a.m. LA time, that really shows something. So really good luck and congratulations on all these efforts.
That's what's happening. So with YouTube, this is what's happening. With Instagram, we're going to do more tips-based reels. I'm also taking advantage of the broadcast channel on Instagram. I think it's like the best thing that happened to Instagram, like in ages. Oh my God. I have so much fun in there. And it's like, and I blindly listen to my audience. Like I go, pick a thumbnail, and then that is the thumbnail. Because you got to be honest to like what you're doing too. Because a lot of people just do it to like, oh, would you buy a course if I make it on this thing and that thing? It's like, get the fuck out of here. This is like an old trick in the book. So like I am just like, pick a title, 3 titles, pick one. And they pick it. And even if I'm just like, oh, this was like on the bottom of my totem pole, I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to give them that. Because that's, you know, let's listen to people. I think that's also the success of the last 2 videos, because I am using it as like R&D, and then having a big base like that, you know, like, you know, having that much community in one spot, it's like a missed opportunity not to use it. So I asked them last month, what kind of content do you want to see in Reels? And I did before and after, time lapse, or you want to see tips. And I think it was like over 1.2K votes for Reels or tip-based Reels, and then it was basically like a 85 to like 5.
Wow.
It was crazy.
You have
And
your
when that
answer
happened-
already.
The people have spoken.
You don't have to freaking think about it anymore.
So that's it, right? So like this is what's happening like on the tip-based Reels on Instagram, and then YouTube videos. That's the direction. I was going to put out a course, but the thing is, like, the first course is such a success, and the craziest thing about my masterclass is that the way I made it is like it's not tethered to Resolve 16, you know, or Resolve 17 or Resolve 18. Like the techniques that I used are the techniques that I use to grade today. Yes, there are some new tools that that makes our lives like easier, faster, whatever, but the bones of like how I operate is the same. So like my course is all about like giving you the logic. And I mean, you could literally be like a Premiere Pro user, take my course and get the logic and understanding of like, why do this and that? And you can connect the dots, because you'll go, well, I also have lift gamma gain in Premiere Pro. So, but now I have the logic like to do this, that, and the other thing to get this result. So that is still doing really well. We're going to keep that product going, and it's really helping so many freaking people. The community is there's not a better community because we do weekly competitions, something that is a really stupid idea, and I wish I just monetized on it, because I know so many people, like my brother's buddy just like launched a course, and it's like $597, or it's $597 and $100 a month for a community. Same exact service that I'm offering, and people took him up on it, and now he has 40 grand a month recurring like revenue from his first launch. And now imagine the second launch, he has like 80 grand coming in every month. So it's like, I was really dumb with that, but like you just get that for free with FCM. Like we do weekly challenges, and like I'm sitting here spending hours like judging your grades and giving you feedback. So that's really big. So we're kind of keeping that now, focusing on YouTube for the next 3 months. And then, ask me like early next year and I'll tell you where we're at.
I fucking love that, man. First of all, I want to say thank you for the time that you put, with us, because going from the way you started, just listening to your story of your humble beginnings, your journey, and where you've ended up today, and being able to afford all the sexy toys and the tools that you just talked about. But now you see, because a lot of people might just come and watch your videos, they learn from you, they don't know the backstory, they don't know what you've been through just to get to here today. And honestly, this attitude that you have towards your work is really inspirational and motivational. And for me and Farhad, we're all about the same things. We're always about working your ass off and just achieving your dream and being extremely obsessed. And just listening to you makes me even more inspired, makes me even more motivated to go after it. And I gotta say, I cannot wait for your channel to go fucking smoke everybody else. That's what I want to see. I'm going to be a little bit biased as well. I'm sorry for any other colorists watching this right now. But I'm being honest.
We are in Qazi's team. Come on.
No, because I see you working your ass off. Like, there's no other... unless you fucking stop working and do some other stupid shit, then I'm like, okay, fine. The other guy can take over. But until then, I want you to be number one. And I got to say, I thank you for everything you said. I hope everybody listening and watching today also took away something. You guys know Waqas is on YouTube, on Instagram. Is there any other platform that they should be contacting you? Like, is there any Discord channel or anywhere else they can talk to you?
Yeah, I do, and it's going to be under the same name at the Cosman or Waqas Qazi, but I have a Discord channel which they can find like a link in my latest videos. So like all my YouTube videos.
I'll put it in the description so people can go and check it out.
Yeah, that
I'll
would
put
be
all the
amazing.
links. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, please
I'll
do.
that.
And I'm trying to like shamelessly trying to grow my Twitter. I never use Twitter. So I have like literally 700 followers on
Dude,
Twitter.
Farhad has cracked it. We've been trying for the longest time. It sounds like you're pregnant or something. We've been trying for the longest time, and he fucking cracked it about a couple of days ago. We got our first viral tweet. Farhad, what's the code?
So basically, our Twitter was stuck at 1,000 for the longest time, like a year, and now we are at 2,700 in just 4 or 5 days. So what I realized on X that works really, really well. First of all, you don't need voice and audio or anything. Your visuals, your first 3-4 seconds of your visual should tell people what you're doing. And what you're doing should be interesting enough. It could be your time lapse. It could be any other tool that you're using that other people want to share it with other people. Because on X, how does it work is if nobody reposts or retweets your post, technically how many followers you can have for it to be reached. But what we realized is, on Instagram or YouTube, we do hooks, intros, we talk about what
None of that shit on X.
None of that shit on X. It's more like right straight to the meat, show me what you're doing, do something that nobody else is doing, and
I probably don't have to listen to it. I just have to fucking see it and then repost it.
And then speed times 3 times 4. Like no slow paced anything.
I know.
Times 2 times 3 anything.
I'm experimenting with it. It just like it comes down to like, I also don't like spreading myself too thin. So then it comes down to like what is going to take my attention and what is going to drain my energy. Right? So like you got to look at like those pros and cons and like just look at the outcomes. Like if I'm spending so much time like learning this platform now and creating stuff on it, like it could be worth it in the long run, but can I afford to not give my 100% to YouTube videos and like the goals that I'm sharing with you guys to go do that? But at the same time, I am curious because I do see people that have like Twitter communities. They're pretty like the conversion is pretty insane, and it's like the when they put like I'm talking about 1,400 follower account, and when they post a video and when they share a link, they'll get like 40 clicks and stuff. And it's just like, I'm kind of blown away. I'm like, this is really high for you to share a video on a platform. And it's like, and get that. So I just feel like for that is kind of attractive, thing to just kind of get into. But I haven't cracked the code. I'm listening to you and I hear you and I'm open. I'm all ears. I'm trying different things, but I'm not going to lie and say that I'm posting 6 times a day or anything like that. I mean, I go through my phases. I'm like super hot on it and I'll post like 4 times today and then I'm like gone for 3 days, So it's that kind of thing.
No,
This
no,
was
we
fun.
totally get that. It was amazing talking to you, man. I wish you all the best, and we hope to see you again, maybe another episode after maybe next year. We'll see where you're at, and hopefully it's going to be fucking still number 1, you know what I mean? But going even higher and higher and higher. Thank you so much, Waqas, and thank you every single one of you guys who watched and listened to this podcast. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Until then, ciao.